than normal, just because I got a busy day tomorrow, a lot of things to do, and I figured I'd start a little bit early so I can potentially end this stream a little bit earlier. So I'm going to give you a few moments. Please hit the like and subscribe button. Let me know how you're doing. Do a super chat, and let's hang out and talk about Freemasonry. Anything you guys want to talk about, positive, negative, or neutral, I'd love to hear it. If anybody could send me some ghost stories, I'd very much appreciate it because I have my October 21st 24-hour live stream coming up 2 p.m. and I could use some stories regarding um, regarding ghost stories and Freemasonry, whether it be ghost stories that take place in Masonic lodges or Masonic buildings, or ghost stories where the ghosts themselves are Freemasons, or Freemasons have seen the ghosts, or paranormal, whatever it is. I hope that you will send me an email, info@squareandcompass.ca, and let me know if you guys have any, because 24-hour live stream, I'm going to need lots of stories. Also, coming up soon, on the 20th through to the 21st, I'm going to be doing a Good Witch Marathon on my personal YouTube channel, which should be a lot of fun. So I hope you guys will tune in for that as well. In the meantime, though, let's wait. Let's see who joins. Please hit like, please hit subscribe, and I hope everybody is doing well. Please hit that like button, that subscribe button. Any thoughts you have on Freemasonry, positive, negative, or neutral, I'd love to hear them. For now, we're just going to give it a bit of time. We're going to see who joins. And as always, please take a moment, hit the like and subscribe button. Zool, hello. You say, brother, are you a Freemason yourself? And if you are, let me know where you're from. Malaysia. I wish I could say I've been to Malaysia, but I never have. Having said that, though, I hope that you are doing well. Are you a Freemason from Malaysia? If not, I do know there is Freemasonry in Malaysia, at least to my knowledge there is, so I know very little about it in terms of numbers or anything like that. I have to look into it more to see. Dixon Messon, I'm going to call you Dixon. I do not, Kashmir. Okay, well, what do you want to learn? Ask me some questions, Dixon. Freemasonry is kind of a broad topic. So, I don't want to just start talking. Give me some questions. I will do my best to answer them. Welcome from Germany, Morrison. Okay, well, let's start with Al Babek and work backwards. So Freemasonry is a civic institution, a social club, if you will. It is welcome to men of all different faiths, as well as all different races and ethnicities. It's not ever discussed within Freemasonry. Sadly, there was a time in Masonic history where, because Freemasons are creatures of their time, they're human beings, right? They are as much a part of their time as anything else. So, at a time when you had more racism in society, you had more racism in Freemasonry, unfortunately. And I'm going to get the date wrong, in 1784, I think I might be getting that date wrong, a black gentleman by the name of Prince Hall applied to join a Masonic lodge in Boston, and he was denied because of his race, which is, I think, a stain on that Masonic lodge that denied him in particular. But it did lead to something good in that Prince Hall then went to the Grand Lodge of Ireland and England and started Prince Hall Freemasonry, which initially was Freemasonry for black men to join. It exists in Canada, United States, and overseas as well. It still exists. They are recognized. They are a very valuable and important part of the Masonic family. I consider Prince Hall brethren to be my brethren. But in 2025, it's no longer. I mean, a black person may be more interested in joining Prince Hall because of the historical connections, but there is no segregation. So, I've sat in my Masonic lodge with many black men, Asian, Filipino, indigenous. It hasn't made a difference. I'm not going to pretend like there aren't racist Freemasons that have existed in every age, because Freemasons are human beings. But I believe if you are truly following the tenets and the philosophies of Freemasonry, then there should be no racism in your heart, because I believe Freemasonry, by its nature, is opposed to Freemasonry, is opposed to racism, and would be if you understood it properly, in my humble opinion. Having said that, unfortunately, just as with any group and any society and any club and anything, the better and worse angels will always be present. But I believe that Freemasonry, if it's done properly, strengthens our better angels. I hope that made sense. Al Babek. But yeah, and it's interesting. I always have really mixed feelings about Prince Hall because, on the one hand, I think it's always a shame when someone is denied access to something because of their race, obviously, and it's a stain. On the other hand, as a consequence of that, you end up with Prince Hall Freemasonry, which is an incredibly vital and important part of both Masonic history and American history. So that's my opinion on that. Um, by the way, everybody watching this, if you're new to the stream, Dixon, please hit the like and subscribe button. I would truly appreciate it. Dixon, I'll start at the basics. Freemasonry is a civic institution, a social club. Some would call it a fraternity, though there is options for women as well. And it was founded in the later Middle Ages. It derived from stonemason guilds. So initially you had stonemasonry guilds. These were actual tradesmen who shaped stone for human use, for human dwellings, whatever it might be. They shaped and worked with stone. They had their own guilds, trade unions, their lodges, and eventually they began to allow others to join who wanted to join for a social aspect and a community aspect and not to actually learn how to work things with stone. Eventually, those people, which are called speculative masons, outgrew the operative masons, and as a consequence of that, Freemasonry, the social club, was born. I don't think so, EA, because he would have been, way before. Freemasonry 1717, Robin Hood, date, first appearance. 1377. So he even predates the Regius manuscript. Never mind the start of the Grand Lodge. So no, he wouldn't have been. I don't even know if there are any Masons, like stonemasons, mentioned in the stories of Robin Hood. It wouldn't shock me if there were, but I can't think of any. We're going to give it a bit more time. We're going to see who else joins. As always, please take a moment. If you're just joining us and you're new, to hit the like and subscribe button. I hope I answered your question well. Oh, Dixon. Yes, George Washington was a Freemason. He was actually one of the, um, like, he was very active as a Freemason. Like, there have been different politicians throughout history who have been Freemasons. As Freemasonry is more ubiquitous, you had more of them. It's very minimal amount, if any, in 2025. But he was known for not just being a Freemason, but being very active within Freemasonry. During trips where he would be engaging in presidential responsibilities, he would often actually take time to visit Masonic lodges. Um, it's funny because George Washington was a Freemason, so was King George. An interesting kind of side note. Well, your brother is going to be sadly disappointed if he ever were to actually become a Freemason and find out we do not, in fact, control the world, nor are we a secret society, since I'm here talking about it right now. Usually, we can't even control what we're going to have for dinner or getting our members to open up their emails and respond with RSVPs to our dinners. Um, by the way, it's small on my screen. Is your avatar Robert California from The Office, who's my favorite Office character, by the way? I never got hugely into The Office, for the record, but the every now and then when I come across an episode, or I'd have it on in the background while I was doing other stuff, the Robert California character was always my favorite. And I like the fact that when they replaced Michael Scott, they didn't go with a Michael Scott clone. There was somebody who was his complete opposite. I thought that worked really well. No, King George. I mean, Freemasonry really was a creature of the Enlightenment in a lot of ways. And because of that, a lot of famous Enlightenment era politicians, leaders, thinkers, philosophers were themselves Freemasons. Um, Mine is from Jeremiah Johnson, Joshua Grave. I don't know what yayo means. I can't see it well, so. But welcome. By the way, I do have, and I'm very proud to say, I do have the super chat option now available on my streams. So if you want to do a super chat for just $1, I'd appreciate it. I'm trying to get these super chats up and running. Um, I always thought Dwight would make a good Freemason, to be honest. I don't know if that's a positive or negative view for Freemasonry. I guess it depends if you like the Dwight character. But I thought the fact that he cared about people and cared about doing a good job. Dwight's one of those people who I think he was my favorite character because it's refreshing to see somebody who actually cares, who's not cynical about what he does for a living, right? He, genuinely cares about Dunder Mifflin, cares about his boss. I appreciated that. I liked that. Um, and thank you for liking and subscribing. Any more questions, Dixon? Like I said, I'll do my best to answer them. Ask your brother why he thinks we rule the world. I'd love to hear it. Which movie, Michael H? I don't recognize the movie. 99 cents with a poop emoji. Not quite a dollar, but I still appreciate it, Mr. Keeps on Ticking. And why are you doing up? Don't you have to go to work tomorrow? You should be sleeping. The Renaissance, people are saying we're in a Masonic Renaissance right now. I question that quite a bit, because the reason I question it, I think, is because while we are seeing more people talking about Freemasonry on social media, my podcast, you're seeing more books being written about it. You're seeing more media coverage of it. You're seeing more esoteric discussions of it in lodges. A lot of lodges are really laying into esoteric talks about Freemasonry, about its origins and its history. You're still not. You're still not seeing the membership and member engagement increase. You're seeing more discussions on Freemasonry, but that's not bringing more members into the lodge. It may get more members discussing Freemasonry on YouTube, but that's not translating into engagement. And to me, I don't really think we can call it an engagement until we see members actually being, or sorry, a renaissance, until the members are actually being engaged within lodge. Otherwise, it's self-defeating. I would rather have 100,000 Masons attending Masonic lodges than 100,000 people on this stream, even though I'm grateful for this stream. Don't get me wrong. Um, Mr. Keeps always spoils me. No, not at all, Michael. I appreciate Mr. Keeps very much. Yep, I think I that's a Masonic Renaissance idea. I forget who said that, but I think I've heard a very similar quote to that. But again, it's the challenge is all well and good. It's just um, it's not going to be Renaissance if we don't have full lodge rooms. Um, Sometimes that happens. YouTube will sometimes remove questions. Is there any particular, so you can try asking it again, maybe use different words, or just give me the gist of it, and I'll try my best to answer it for you. If it's anything about conspiracy theories, I assure you, you're going to be really bored if you ever join really bored. I'm watching this on my computer as well. Really bored if you're going to believe the conspiracy theories and you were to actually join. I promise you that. Okay, what's the other question? Did I miss it? Well, the fact that it's a poop emoji then is very funny. Um, Mr. Keeps, come on, it's too early in the morning to be cranky. And calling people names. Let's see. Oh, here it is. What's the deal with the cars that are little Freemasons logo like hidden in their taillights? So the little cars are I think you're referring to Shriners. So the Shrine are the people in the little cars who wear the funny hats. They are a branch of Freemasonry. They're called fezzes, by the way. They are a branch. So to be a Freemason, to be a Shriner, you must first be a Freemason, and then you can join the Shrine. They do a lot of parade stuff because really they do a lot of work with charities, especially children's hospitals. Shriners, children's hospitals, right? They do a lot of charitable work and they go to a lot of parades, both to promote the shrine, to promote their charitable endeavors, and to entertain the people in the parade, or watching the parade, I should say. Well, I don't know when you say hidden. I've never heard of hidden Masonic logos on cars. Many Masons will we call them lights, or many people call them lights. Lights are basically anything that indicates you're a Freemason. So it could be wearing a ring, it could be a shirt with this symbol on it, it could be a necklace with the symbol on it, it could be my tattoo, or it could be a bumper sticker or a symbol on a car. That's often called Masonic lights. A lot of Masons put them on their cars just because they want to show off that they're a Freemason, because they like showing off their Freemason. The idea of keeping it hidden, I'm not really sure. I'm not really sure kind of why they would hide it or where they put it in special spots, but you're seeing more and more stuff like that. I mean, people are putting stickers in their workplaces. You have rings, tattoos. People put them on their bicycles. You can purchase them in a lot of spaces. I always warn non-Masons and newer Masons, though, don't assume just because someone has a ring or has a square and compass symbol or lights, they're automatically a Mason. A lot of people just like the designs and will wear them for that reason. Or it could be, you borrow somebody's car. They're a Mason. They have the square and compasses on the car, but you're not a Mason, right? And somebody sees it, stops you, wants to ask you questions. So never assume just because someone has lights that they're automatically a Freemason. Shrine is spelt Shrine, luminary. Shrine, Shriner with an R. I am not a Shriner. I am an 18th degree Scottish Rite, and we do not perform any evil rites of domination, nor do we perform any good rites of domination. Freemasonry is not about dominating over anyone. I'm very sorry to disappoint you. If that's what you're hoping for, you would be very bored if you knew the truth about how little our rites are evil or not evil. Let's give it a bit of time. Let's see who joins. Please, as always, hit that like and subscribe button. Any more questions, Dixon? Please, like I said, since you say you know nothing about Freemasonry, but you've always been curious. As I got a hole in my chin here. It's really best not to think of it in terms of levels. If I use that term, then I apologize. Well, I think to the extent that people on the left will have problems with Freemasonry, it probably wouldn't be the Shrine. But that's why you want to avoid political struggles altogether. So it's better not to think about it in terms of levels. The best way to think about Freemasonry is in degrees. So when you join, so the actual Masonic process, if you want the very first level of Freemasonry, in some ways, Dixon, might be you, in the sense that you're not a Freemason, but you're curious about it, and you're asking questions about it. And whether it's on this stream or somebody who goes and approaches a lodge or meets a Mason, whatever it is, that's kind of the basic level, right? Which is asking about it. After that, though, when you join Freemasonry, you're an entered apprentice, which is the first degree in Freemasonry. And all of these levels are meant to mimic or represent the levels that ancient stonemasons went through in their training to be stonemasons. So at the start, you were an entered apprentice, or you were an apprentice, and you were basically learning. You weren't permitted to do any work without a master there or somebody there to teach you. You had to demonstrate that you were skilled in stonemasonry. If you are a entered apprentice, you're at the first degree, you're proving that you are skilled in Freemasonry. And basically that's by attending meetings and taking part and learning memorization, basically. You have to memorize a series of questions and answers, and oftentimes memorize your degree. Then you get to the second degree, which is the fellowcraft. In stonemasonry terms, fellowcrafts were able to do work on buildings on their own. They no longer had to be supervised or trained by a master. They were sufficient skill that they could go out and try to earn a living as stonemasons on job sites around Europe. In Masonic terms, it basically means you're now know enough that you can contribute, but you don't know enough that you can teach others, is the way to think about it, or preside over others. You're skilled enough that you don't need supervision, but you're not skilled enough as a Freemason to supervise others. And then the third degree is the Master Mason degree. At that point, If you get your third degree, at that point, you're now considered skilled enough that you can actually supervise and train other Masons, or mentoring is how we'd call it. And you can also then hold office positions in lodge, including being a worshipful master, like I am, and basically being the CEO of a Masonic lodge. And to advance through each degree, you have to prove your proficiency in the former degree by answering questions, and kind of the lodge has to agree that you have reached a level that you can move up and advance. Now, so if you want to ask, like, what is the highest level in Freemasonry, it would be the third degree. Or in some ways, you could argue Master Mason if you wanted to. Worshipful Master, which again is the head office in a lodge. It's kind of like the CEO of the Masonic Lodge, making sure the lodge runs properly. I say you could argue that's the highest level because there is a special ceremony that's reserved exclusively for Masons who are installed worshipful masters. After that, though, there really is no higher levels. You can join a Scottish Rite, you can join a York Rite, or you can join the Shrine, which are appendant bodies, and they have additional degrees within them, including as high as the 33rd degree in Scottish Rite. But that doesn't mean that you are at a higher level. It just means you've taken a specialization within Freemasonry to learn more about the craft and to be involved in certain aspects of it. If you want to be involved in charitable aspects, you might join Shrine. If you want to learn more about the history of kind of the philosophy of Freemasonry, you might join Scottish Rite. If you want to learn more about the history of Freemasonry, you might join York Rite. But you're not at a higher level. The highest level is either a worshipful master or a master mason, which is the third degree. So Rainy Girl, 33rd is not a higher level. I'll give you a perfect example. And by the way, Christina, I see your question. And Mark, I see your question too. I promise I'll get to them in just 1 second. I was recently within a lodge. I'm the worshipful master of the lodge. There were 8 members present, plus several visitors. One member was a 33rd degree Scottish Rite Mason. All the rest were either entered apprentices or master masons. No one else was a 33rd degree. There was a vote in lodge on a motion to pay a bill. Which there was debate about whether it should be paid or whatever. 7 members voted one way. The 33rd voted a different way. And the 7, because it was 7-1, the motion passed. Even though it was a 33rd degree, it didn't make a difference, right? In the lodge, he's not of a higher level than anybody else. It's just he has an honorific. And so maybe his ideas and his voice will take a higher, we'll have more of we'll carry more weight in some ways because he has that honor, but it's not binding and people can vote against. Christina, so do Freemasons help each other? I mean, it's possible. We're not obligated to necessarily. Certainly, if you have a higher or a larger, I should say, or more expansive social circle, there's always a possibility that within that greater social circle, there may be people who can help you financially and support you, or maybe give you a job if you need one, or whatever it might be. That's certainly the case. That's possible. Though Freemasonry is not ubiquitous enough that really happens very much. If you're joining and you think you're going to get rich by joining, you're going to be disappointed. And if anybody tells you join and you'll get rich, you're going to be disappointed. I will say it doesn't so much help people become successful in their financial lives, but it can provide a safety net for people in that very often what you find is, if I've known Masons, I've told this story before, I've known 2 Masons who would have been evicted and on the street were it not for Freemasons stepping in and providing them with benevolence or financial support to pay their rent, to pay their bills. And in one case, it would have been not just the Mason, but the Mason's family. So rarely, if ever, does Freemasonry help you become financially successful, but it can act as a safety net if you lose a job, let's say, have medical debt and need help. But that depends on if the lodge has the capacity to do that as well. Mark, it's one CEO who's the worshipful master, but there are several offices that help with different aspects of the craft. You have a secretary who does administrative secretarial duties. You have a treasurer who maintains financial reports. You have junior wardens who are responsible for refreshment, et cetera, et cetera. So there's a great deal that goes into that. And there's definitely, it takes a village to run a Masonic lodge, that's for sure. I mean, it can happen, Mr. Keeps. Usually they don't last long because if somebody is constantly coming to the lodge asking for a handout, at a certain point, the belief is probably going to be that either they are scamming or they're making mistakes with money. But there are like once it gets to a certain point, and every lodge is different, but most Masonic lodges will, especially if it gets to a high enough level, will engage in some type of investigation. So if somebody comes to you with benevolence requests for, I don't know, pick an amount of money that's relatively small, they may, just pass a motion and do it. But if it gets frequent, or if, for example, they go from their local lodge to the Grand Lodge asking for benevolence, usually there will be, in those instances, some type of investigation where they'll ask them for their financial statements, history, what happened, why they continually need this money. And usually at that point, if they are a schmuck and just looking for a handout, they'll leave. And if it is legitimate and there's a legitimate cause behind what's happening, then usually they'll pass the investigation and they'll continue to receive support. Um, you don't need to have a good job to be a Freemason. You definitely don't need to have a good job. You would need to have a sufficient amount of money to pay your dues, which can be as low as $40 a year to as much as $500 per year. It just depends on the lodge and where they're located. The cheapest dues I've ever heard of or paid myself was $40 American per year, which works out to about 60 Canadian, 55 Canadian. Um, no worries. I knew people who had a monopoly on property and they were all Masons. I mean, I've known Masons who were janitors through to professors, through to police officers. I've known all different types. Scientology, Nam Rofni, is not related to Freemasonry. It's different organizations. I've never met a Scientologist who's also a Freemason. That's not to say it's impossible. To my knowledge, Scientologists believe in a supreme being, so they may believe in um, a supreme being who and could join Freemasonry, but I don't know of any Scientologists who are. Um, Rainy Girl, no worries, Mark. Rainy Girl asks, is there a high dropout rate? Um, the Fat Muppet, Freemasonry can be boring, but that doesn't mean it's not valuable. Sometimes the most important things we do are boring, but yet important. Exercise can be boring, but it doesn't mean it's not valuable. So, Rainy Girl, that's a really interesting question. The technical answer is no. Freemasonry actually has some of the best retention rates in the world, in that usually if somebody becomes a Freemason, they can very often remain a Freemason, not only for their whole life, but past their life, because if the secretary is not keeping track of things, a brother may pass away, and if you forget to go into the records and, make a note, they may still be listed as a member, even though they're deceased. What Freemasonry has a problem with is not dropout rates, it's lack of engagement. So, you may have a lodge that has 100 members, and on any given meeting night gets 20 showing up, if that, maybe 15% of their membership, and the other 85% are never seen. In some cases, they may pay their dues every year. In other cases, they may have taken a life membership, which means they don't have to pay dues, and their name is kept on a list, and we never see them. One of the biggest issues in Freemasonry is the lack of engagement. It's not members dropping out; it's members not showing up, and I'm working on it. What percentage would you say? Ooh, that's a good question. Actually, there's been some research on this, but I can't find it now. All right, but it's too late. Because they actually did a survey of this, of how many people who get their master mason, get their entered apprentice degrees stick around to get the EA degree. Sorry, how many people, I can talk, how many people who get the EA degree in Ontario actually become master masons? And I think it was something like, this is just a guess. I could be off. This was done before COVID. I think the survey said 30% of entered apprentices did not go forward to get the Master Mason degree. And most of those actually did demit. I would say in my experience, if somebody goes through and gets their Master Mason degree, generally speaking, they remain as members on the books for life. But I would say the percentage of Masons who, within 5 years, stop attending regularly is probably around 40%. And then after 8 or 9 years, it jumps up to, honestly, probably 80%. The reason I split it up is usually in many Masonic lodges, it takes about 7 or 8 years to become the worshipful master of a lodge. And a lot of times, Masons will stick around for 7 to 8 years, become worshipful master, do their year, and then the past masters very often disappear. So I would say within 10 years, we're usually looking at a 70% disengagement rate. And I define disengagement as a failure to attend at least 2 meetings per year. Um, right? A lot of people define engagement differently. I say if you're disengaged, it means you're failing to attend at least 2 meetings per year. Um, NNS, I'm not sure what a Messianic Christian is. Many Freemasons are Christians. I know that for a fact. I've met many who would identify as Christians or are Christians. I don't know what the term Messianic means. I think it means, because isn't Christianity, if I understand it correctly, I would define Christianity as a belief that Jesus Christ is the Lord and Savior. So what would make someone a Messianic Christian versus not Messianic? It's very high, Mr. Keeps. It's unfortunate, right? And what you can get is they'll become worshipful master, they'll do their year, you won't see them for 10, 20 years, then they'll come back, if there's a lot to come back to, and try to get active once again. Very often what you see is, and I've had this discussion, so Scottish Rite is a part of it, as is York, unfortunately. Scottish Rite's not going to like me saying that. Oftentimes, what I very often see, and I've seen this pattern happen often, is they join when they're young and they either are not married or they have a girlfriend. They get married, the wife has kids. There's this agreement in the marriage or the relationship, either tacit or like either implied or stated, that, okay, you can do this to become a worshipful master, but after that, you're kind of expected to focus on the family and the home. And especially starting in the 90s to the 2000s, you have a dual income homes, which means the wife is working, which means they may need people to stay home with the kids. They can't get babysitters, whatever happens. And after they're worshipful master, they decide, okay, now I'm going to focus on my family. And eventually, when they return to lodge is when the kids are old enough now to be on their own, or they moved out of the home and are in university. And it's funny because I think it says something about society in 2025. And because I was worshipful master for the first time in 2015, and I was constantly getting phone calls from members telling me I can't show up to lodge today. I need to watch the kids, or the wife needs help with the kids, that type of thing. And I remember thinking to myself, when I was growing up, it was very common for me to have babysitters because my dad had a Masonic event and my mom would either be with him for like a ladies' night or something, or my mom would have something going on, like a ladies' event. So I was, I would say at least 3 or 4 times a month had a babysitter watching me. And I remember thinking to myself, like, why are none of these Masons able to get babysitters nowadays? This was 2015. I don't know if that says something about society, but and then honestly, Mr. Keeps, society is not designed well right now for Freemasonry. There's a lot of reasons why it's hard to convince guys to show up, and those things have been talked about forever. Um, um, you know, we could drive into technology giving you the illusion of brotherhood, or certain types of illusions of brotherhood or connectedness, needing to work longer hours for less money, sometimes work sending you away. Um, I wouldn't call them losers. I mean, I don't think that's fair. Sometimes it's, but again, like, so growing up, both my mom and dad worked. My dad made way more money than my mom. I think my mom could have chosen probably not to work, I think, but I think she liked having a job. But they were able to make it work and bring Freemasonry into it as well. Like, again, I got babysitters all the time growing up. I remember a few times when I was a little bit older, actually waiting downstairs while my dad had his Masonic Lodge meeting, and it was fine. And you're not wrong. It is, and it does frustrate me a lot when a guy's been gone 8, 9, 10, 12 years, you don't see him, and he shows up again and says, wow, it's great to be back. Um, but it's hard to know what to do about it. I have my own opinions about what to do about it, but they're my personal opinions. I think it's worth Freemasonry considering requiring attendance of at least 2 meetings per year, or else you face suspension, right? Because the other danger of Freemasonry, by the way, I've been a Freemason since 2007. The Fat Muppet, my dad and grandparents are both Freemasons. So my family's been involved in Freemasonry since at least the 1950s. But there's indications my great grandfather was a Freemason. So that would be up to the 1920s. Um, any new pies? Not so far. Um, so NNS, I didn't forget about you. So I know many Jewish Freemasons. I also know many Christian Freemasons and Muslim Freemasons. I've never met any like Messian. I've never met anybody who described themselves as being Jewish but believing in Jesus. But it's very possible. I never asked them the particulars of their faith precisely and in that detail, right? Obviously, if I was on a committee to learn more about the applicant, I would ask, do you believe in a supreme being? And then I would ask for an explanation of what that supreme being is. Usually, again, it's almost always some default version of Christianity. When I say default version, I mean they may not attend church regularly, but usually they'll express their belief in Christian terms. On a couple occasions Jewish, a couple occasions Muslim, indigenous, and then a lot of Masons like myself who believe in a supreme being in a more spiritual sense. But I don't know of any Messianic. I think it goes to this idea that people have the Freemasons as a Jewish organization, which it's not. Jewish people are welcome, but it's not exclusive for them. Um, and again, Mr. Keeps, I do think I've talked about this, right? What causes people to not be engaged? It's a combination of factors. It's why I'm always saying you cannot separate the economic conditions of a community from the conditions of Freemasonry within that community. Like I once visited a lodge in Nevada where they were really struggling, and they said the reason we really struggle is because we're a mining town. Basically, 90% of the population here of men work for the mine, and the mine is constantly sending men out of town, shipping them to different mines across America. Basically, when you join, there's kind of this understanding that if the mine says you're going to work in New Mexico for 6 months, they'll send you there with your family. They'll, whatever it is, but And what are you going to do if that's the main um, employer in the town? That happens all the time. People move. People are much more mobile looking for work. It's not, back in the day, you could have the same job and be, you got to look at Detroit, has the biggest Masonic building in the world. If you're living in Detroit in the 1940s, 50s, you get a job, you can be confident that job is going to be around for the next 50, 60, 70 years. You can be confident that if you join a Masonic lodge, you can keep showing up and be part of the community and know your job is going to be there. Nowadays, you have to be much more mobile, much more willing to move, much more willing to take jobs that require crazy hours, right? Like if you're an Uber Eats driver or an Uber driver and you want to go to your lodge, but there's a fare that will pay you $300 to take you 2 hours away or something. Like it's a different world. And I'm not trying to make excuses for brethren. I think you need to show up. I do believe very often brethren are being lazy when they don't show up and are using kind of family and job as a crutch. But I also have to accept the fact that there is a level of changing societal expectations. So, Mr. Keeps, when you say kind of weird for the deist group to have an independent body, honestly, I used to feel that way because my favorite thing about Freemasonry, and I've talked about this a bunch on the stream, is its welcoming nature of all different faiths and beliefs. I think, though, I'm more comfortable with it now because the way I view it now, and I've used this analogy before, when I was going to law school, right, obviously law school welcomed everybody. You had men, women, black, white, all different religions, whatever it is, right? Law school welcomed everybody. But within law school, you had the women's law student club, right? You had a group, actually not in the law school per se, but in the university itself had a group for disabled students. You had groups for Muslim law students. You had, black law students. And it's one of those things where now that I think about it, so long as Freemasonry itself welcomes everybody, which it should, if they want to within Freemasonry have a certain rite or group for people of certain faith, then you know what, I'm fine with it because again, it's within the craft welcoming the faith, and also because Freemasonry again doesn't have these levels that people think. If it's like you need to be at a certain faith to be more important in Freemasonry or at a higher level, then I would disapprove of it. But again, if you're part of the York Rite and you're part of that particular group, it's not like you get 2 votes in lodge or you get, more sway in a lodge or get the final word. When you're in the Masonic Lodge, you're on equal level to everybody else. So in that sense, I can appreciate it. If that makes any sense at all. Swef Eck, 1776. Well, this is why I never say if I'm LGBTQ or not, because people like Swef Eck use the term gay in a derogatory manner. We do not worship we do not worship Satan. Freemasonry does not worship Satan. Freemasonry does not worship any particular god. Rather, Freemasonry welcomes men of all different faiths and beliefs. In fact, in my opinion, when it comes to the idea of Freemasonry and worship, I think the most beautiful statement ever made about Freemasonry was made in the Anderson Constitutions concerning God and religion, which I can read again. I've read it before. I don't think that's just the most beautiful part in Freemasonry. I think that's one of the most beautiful things ever written about religious tolerance and religious respect. No level, Carlton Banks, would be very sad. You can tell he hadn't been to the echelon. I mean, you are encouraging Freemasonry to question all the time, at least implicitly, if not explicitly. Thank you, Mr. Keeps. Once again, no, I'm not going to say I think you know, though, Mr. Keeps, because you know about my childhood crush. So you can make your judgments based on that. Um, but I do, and it does make me feel kind of vaguely bad because, again, I know I've met several LGBT, well, certainly the G Freemasons, and it's like, I don't like when people use LGBTQ stuff as a slur. Um, and thank you, Mr. Keeps, for the 149. Everybody should be like Mr. Keeps. Do a dollar or two donation. It's much appreciated to the super chat. Um, but I hope what I said made sense about why I'm comfortable with having an appendant body at a certain level requiring the Christian faith. I think it's understandable because again, it doesn't preclude anybody from becoming a Freemason, but it is a special group within Freemasonry, which is fair. It would be no different than if the Grand Lodge wanted to start a special club for disabled Freemasons to talk about issues related to our disabilities. It's okay. Or whatever it is, right? I don't know. Young Freemasons might be a better example, honestly, where it's like we're going to set up a special group for Masons who are between the ages of 21 and 30, so they can talk about issues that affect them, particularly as younger Masons. And honestly, that might not be a bad idea, as I'm just riffing here, because like I said, one of the issues is if you're in your 60s or your 70s or your 80s and you're a Freemason, you probably came through Freemasonry in a very different time when the expectations that the typical member had were very different, especially in their home life. Are you really going to have the understanding or the sympathy that somebody of the same age will have going through what it means to be a father and a husband in 2025 versus what it meant in 1950 or 60? Go to sleep, Mr. Keeps. You have to work tomorrow. Yes, get yourself to sleep, but thank you for being here as always. So Carlton, I don't believe that's your real name, but Carlton, I hope you will hit the like and subscribe button, and I hope you'll let me know if you have any thoughts on Freemasonry. And to everybody who's been watching this so far, especially who's new, let me know what thoughts you might have. And Swefik, if you're still there, let me know why you think Freemasonry or Freemasons worship Satan. Where are those ideas coming from? And it's interesting because in your name you have the word or the year 1776, which makes me think you might be patriotic towards America. George Washington was himself a Freemason. Superman? Wasn't it spelled CL? Supposedly a Freemason. There's a couple comic book panes that indicate both him and Bucky were Freemasons. So cool little note there. If you're referring to Superman. Otherwise, if I'm missing something, because you're spelling with a K, and I do not understand why, then I have no idea. Who's Bucky? Bucky was his friend. Bucky and Clark, or no, sorry. Oh my gosh, I'm getting it mixed up with Captain America now. Captain America and Bucky Barnes were confirmed to be Freemasons. So in the thing, Superman, there was a comic pane where Superman is flying away and somebody yells to him, "May the great architect protect you." And the implication therein is he was a Freemason. But it was Captain America and Bucky that were Freemasons. Took me a second. RL, welcome from Daylight Lodge. I love Clarence F. Smith, Daylight Lodge. I've had a few of those people, members on the podcast before. Great lodge, great group of guys. Thank you for being here. I hope you're doing well. I really want to get back and visit Freemasonry in Los Angeles. I was thinking about you guys when the fires were going on, and I actually did post the charitable efforts that Masons were engaged with to help those affected by the fires. Um, by the way, RL, I hope you'll hit the like button if you're not done so yet. And if you want to give a super chat, I hope you'll do so. I have no idea what you're talking about, Michael H. But thank you for being here nonetheless. But it's great to have my Los Angeles brethren in the chat. I love Freemasonry in Los Angeles. I think it's really awesome. I just love Los Angeles in general. Very good, very cool city. Oh, well, indeed. Sorry, Michael H. I wish I could help you more. I'm just going to give it a few more minutes. We're going to wait to see who else joins. I'm on my phone. I sometimes do laptop stuff. It just depends on kind of what's happening. But today I'm doing my phone. Mostly I do phone. I find I get more people finding me, and I enjoy it more. But for my 24-hour live stream, I may do a combination. I may do live stream and may do a live stream on my phone and on my laptop. We shall see. My 24-hour stream is going to be October 21st. It's going to start at 2 p.m. and it's going to go until 2 p.m. on the 21st, and it goes till 2 p.m. on the 22nd. And obviously, I don't expect anybody to be that's not going to be I don't expect anybody to be with me for the whole 24 hours because I'm not a crazy person. But however long you can or cannot be on the stream, I'd appreciate you joining. And I'm hoping every hour we'll have some people giving some super chats. It can even be a buck or two. No, I'll be awake for the whole time or thereabouts. Usually I'll take a break every now and then. With Freemasonry, yes, Freemasonry has a major problem with engagement and attendance. I think it's the biggest challenge facing Freemasonry right now. I will see about doing cake stands, Michael H. I can't make you any promises, but I'll do my best. I'll do my best to do all the cake stands. All right, we're going to give this another, let's say, 5 minutes because we've done it for an hour, which has been awesome. And I hope everybody has an excellent night. But if you want to do cake stands while you're watching me, by all means, you go for it. You have your fun. Well, I mean, it's funny when you say that. That's when the Masonic decline happened. It was big in the 60s because it was bigger in the 50s, right? Starting from 1959 on, Masonic lodges dropped in numbers year over year. It's just the numbers were so high in 1959 that it felt big, and it was bigger compared to today. But that is when the decline started. So really, the size of it in the 60s reflects more the popularity of it in the 50s. And the popularity and the size of it in the 50s reflects the fact that a lot of people joined from the army. It was really driven by World War II returning veterans who wanted to maintain a sense of camaraderie and social cohesion. And also, it was a very strong economic period in the 50s, which encourages people to join Freemasonry. I do the Fat Muppet. I do. I don't think it's exclusive, but I think it helps a lot. Um, I think it helps a lot for sure. That happens. That happens a lot, where people purchase items from an auction, from a whatever it might be, and they find Freemason stuff in it. You often found when that Storage Wars show was super big, you often found uh, like people started to get into buying abandoned storage lockers, and within them, they started to find a lot of Masonic items that were just kind of being left. That's why I always tell Masons, you have responsibility to, in your um, um, what am I trying to say? In your will, in your last one testament, make a list. What Masonic items do I have? Where are they located? And if I pass away, where do they go? And explain it to your family or executor. Don't just rely on kind of them knowing what to do with them. And have a plan, because you may have your items stored somewhere. You don't tell anybody. You think there's time. You pass away. Something terrible happens, and suddenly those items are lost forever. So you have a responsibility to preserve and protect those items. I'd believe it. I've never heard of Masonic measuring cups before, but that's really cool. Okay. I mean, one thing I do recommend is, I mean, it's you got it, lawn, so it's yours to do with as you please. But if you want to be, good brother, find the local lodge in your area and bring those items to them and ask them to take a look at them and maybe donate them back to the closest Masonic lodge. They may belong to a brother there. It may be something important to them. So please consider doing that. But that's very cool. Um, with that, it is 2 in the morning here, and I have to get up early tomorrow. So I'm going to be ending this stream. Thank you all so much for being here. Very cool, RL Serio. I did not know that. Thank you for being here. It's not too late to do a membership, do a super chat, whatever it might be. Thank you guys so much. I will see you all very shortly. Have a great rest of your night.